Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Teach the Podcast. My name is Hannah.
My name is Avery.
And today we're going to be talking about learning and inclusion.
So starting with cell learning and inclusion, the first thing that I want to talk about is community circles, which is obviously a big part of our class this quarter. Community circles are also great for help regulating emotions because what we do in class are mindful moment with breathing. I personally loved those because it was a great way to start our day and be calm before doing a bunch of work. A community circle is definitely something I want to implement in my future class, especially the mindful moment, because I think that it's a great way to regulate emotions before starting your day, and I think that it's a great way, even in the middle of the day, if you have a kiddo who is just cannot focus, is just having such a hard time, it's a great thing to go back to, hey, remember in our mindful moment and how we calm down, box breathing and stuff like that. I think it's a great way to just make sure that everyone is calm and regulated before going about our day. I also wanted to touch on the restorative circle. That's what it was called, right? Yeah,
yes.
The restorative circle that we did in class where we shared feedback and our thoughts on the class. And I think that is such a good idea to help get students involved in how the classroom runs. Obviously, it's important for students to have a say in what is happening in the classroom. And I think that we all benefited from that. And yeah, it can also help build relationships with your students because you can understand this is what's working for them and this is what is not working for them. And like I said, students' opinions are very important and valid in the classroom, and I think restorative circles, community circles are a great way to help give students that voice.
Okay, so something that I want to implement in my classroom with learning and inclusion, kind of just a lot of what we've already talked about, but building an inclusive classroom through relationships and those building blocks of cell, and that kind of structure of equity and trust within the classroom. I think teaching cell through a lot of things that we've learned about, the standards that we learned about, learning how to implement that within the classroom of how do you teach equity, how do you teach self-acceptance, how do you teach self-awareness, all of that kind of stuff. I think something that I currently do right now with my preschool kids is we have a how are you feeling chart. So the kids come in, they wash their hands. It's something that happens every day, so they obviously have a routine of they know what to do. They come in, they wash their hands, they grab a little name slip with their name on it, and they stick it on a how are you feeling chart today. So it's they have excited, they have sad, they have mad, they have nervous, they have happy, all of these things, so they can kind of stop and think before they sit down and learn for the day, how am I really feeling for the day before I come in and learn all of these things, doing a self-check-in. It also helps teachers with learning, little Bobby is not doing well today because he came in and he was, showing all of these signs of, maybe he was sick or something, and then you can go back to, oh, he also put his name underneath the sad section of the chart. So kind of just implementing those routines as well, just having that daily routine that you can go back to, and also telling them, this is something that is a expectation, this is not a question of what you have to do. This is we call it a have to. You have to do this, and then you have the choice of doing XYZ during circle time or center time, that kind of stuff. But having those have to do routines so they know what they are expecting every single day. So they are learning those things every single day, so they know, again, what are they coming into? They know what they're coming into. They know what we expect of them. And those are kind of just some standard methods that I want to implement within my classroom. I also think that teaching cell through modeling those behaviors, kind of things that Ashley has talked about within the class, saying okay, it is okay for me to realize that I have made a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes, and that is something that is an example of promoting self-awareness. Apologizing to somebody because you might have made a mistake, that's self-awareness, but also awareness of other people around you and their feelings as well. But yeah, those are just some of my learning and inclusion methods that I want to implement in my classroom. Okay, awesome. So now that we've talked about learning and inclusion, now we're going to pivot and talk about behavior and discipline and just kind of some of our opinions and thoughts about developing, an approach to behaviors in our classroom.
Perfect. Okay, so one of the biggest things that stuck out to me through our readings this quarter was the Rethinking Challenging Behavior video, and where we talked about how most behaviors all boil down to a singular problem that can just be solved with communication. Um, Specifically, the quote "kids do well if they can" really resonated with me because I know that, like, especially when I was in school, I struggled a lot. Like, I knew I could do it, I just needed the help. And I know in grade school that struggled a lot with behavior. And looking back on it, so much of those problems could be solved if they just got, like, help and they had an adult or a teacher that truly did believe in them, you know? So I think it's really important, and in my future classroom, if I have a kid that's, like, acting out or showing any sort of behavioral problem, to really check in with them, be like, hey, let's take a step back, let's breathe, let's calm down, and then let's figure out what can I do to help you? What can I do to help make this assignment easier for you? What can I do to, like, help you learn, And just finding the root of the problem instead of just jumping to you're acting out just to act out, because so many of these problems are solvable if you just talk to the kid.
So talking about my kind of methods about behavior and discipline, I kind of said the same thing of, like, all behavior is a form of communication. Like, even if kids do not have the words to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, hey, I'm sick, hey, XYZ, it is some kind of communication, if not verbal communication. So I think also kind of what you mentioned as well with having those high standards while still being accommodating for your students. I think, again, kids do well if they can. I think having those resources of, lovingly, like the warm demander?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, warm demander.
Those kinds of teaching methods, like, I want to be that as well. Because having those standards of, like, this is what I need you to do, but also I will accommodate for you if needed, if this means that you will get it done in a way that is productive and a way that you're actually taking and retaining information. Because obviously I don't want my kids to just, like, get things done because they have to. I want it to be engaging for them. I want it to be fun for them because I want them to actually learn. And especially with teaching the age that I want to teach, or kind of like the early childhood age, building those skills that they will use for the rest of their lives is so important. And I need to make sure that I am also being careful with what I do and with what I say, because I need them to retain this information. That also means, again, accommodating for assignments that may not be accessible to them or that may not be easy for them to do. For example, talking about disrupting poverty and talking about kids that will come home and they immediately have to pick up after chores that their parents cannot pick up after, caring for their siblings if they have siblings. Like, if they come home and they are not able to immediately sit down and do their homework or get help with homework, I want to sit down with them and figure out a way where they can learn and they can retain information while still meeting those expectations. Because, if they cannot, again, learn at home, like, they're not going to learn at school. So finding a middle ground of, like, where can I be accommodating? If that means having homework time in 20 minutes of homework time within our day and they can get, a certain amount of it done, that's fine. But doing what I can do on my part and being accommodating on my part for my kids is very important. Something that also came to mind when I was thinking about accessibility and behaviors with those forms of communication is the Would You Rather book, the one that you were talking about, or the one that Ashley was talking about in our class. And just kind of having that resource is so important, because a lot of the time when I think about behaviors within, my future classroom or behaviors right now in my classroom that I'm working in, I think about what are some options that could be better for my kids for them to actually feel like they're engaged. Like, I have one student who just runs laps around the classroom because he's so physically, like, he needs that physical release. So something that we do is we will take him outside for a minute. He jumps on a trampoline for a minute, and then he comes back. I know, it sounds funny, but, like, if it helps him, yeah.
No, I'm more so shocked that your school has a trampoline.
No, I know. We have a mini, like, tiny baby trampoline, but we also have a swing that connects to, like, the ceiling. But if we have a kid that needs that physical release and that's what helps him regulate, we take him outside for a minute. He jumps on the trampoline with a teacher, and he comes back inside and he is able to actually focus. So kind of having those, like, would you rather things is important, and having those accommodations for your students is important so they can, get past that barrier of, like, okay, I'm going to make bad choices because this is my form of communication, rather than let's find a solution to the problem. So,
Yeah, so moving on to one question that we have coming in at checkpoint 2. My question is, how, as a teacher, will I be able to connect with students that feel excluded from the classroom community, even if you have curated that space of, like, everybody is welcomed? There are still going to be students, and I know that because I am that student, that struggle with speaking out in a, like, large group of people. Like, I personally, I have no problem speaking out in small groups, but when it comes to, like, whole class settings, that's where I freeze up and I can't do it. So even in, like, those situations in a classroom, how do you connect with the students that struggle with speaking? Because you want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and everyone's opinions are valid, but some people just cannot verbalize that. So my question is, how can I make sure that even those students that struggle with speaking out, how do I give them a voice that doesn't single them out in a group setting?
Yeah, I have kind of a similar question. I still have questions about how to engage with non-participating students, because I have a student at one of my jobs who I ask every day. I say, hey friend, how was your day? How are you doing? Did you have a good weekend? Did you have a good morning? What did you eat for dinner last night? Like, I don't know, just random stuff. And he's just like, straight face. I cannot connect with him. I don't know why. And obviously I still want to keep trying to connect with him because I care about him as a student and as a person. And I want to break down those walls. But also, what if nothing is reciprocated? And also, like, at what point is too much? At what point do I stop?
Only meet them halfway.
Yes. At what point do I meet them halfway and just say, okay, I did my best? Like, I don't want to have to do that, but I guess that is just kind of one of the questions that I have.
Okay, and then that concludes episode 3 of Teach the Podcast. Thank you so much for watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next one.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.